Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Will Lou. A reminder, we are streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. We had a few questions yesterday about, hey, where's the YouTube video? Why weren't you guys on radio? And look, it was the NHL trade deadline. You know, we had the lines were occupied, but don't worry, we're back. The Raptors are obviously now clear-cut the priority in terms of content, and joining me to discuss the Raptors and their recent loss to the Chicago Bulls is the Fan Morning Show's Blake Murphy, producer. We don't have to drop today? That's tough. It's
Blake Murphy Tuesdays, though, I guess. I'm not going to do it in a voice.
You don't want to try it?
No.
Okay, so Blake, the most pressing question everyone has is what's going on with
Blake Murphy.
Okay, so we do have it. Wow. All right. This is a little pump fake from our producer. This is great. I was gonna say the most pressing question people have is what's up with the new haircut and the new glasses, man? You're looking fresh.
Well, a haircut's just a haircut. Glasses, yeah. I try to help with eye fatigue, looking at screens all day and stuff. And I had laser eye before, so the prescription's really, really mild.
So it's like a fashion thing.
No, it's not a Nick Nurse zero prescription glasses situation. It's
call out Nick.
It's a small prescription though, and then like the blue light stuff that some optometrists don't believe actually does anything. Well, so we'll see.
All right,
just for screens.
Well,
mix it up, trying to be like you.
I guess so. Yeah. Okay. I guess when I get my haircut, I'll cut it like yours, and we'll really look.
No, I like
father and son.
I like the little pony. You should keep it long term, I think.
It's like I think everyone went through the pandemic, and you know, if you had the ability to grow hair, you probably were trying to try some new things because you're like at home all the time.
I became a headband guy for a bit and looked like Joe Harris for a little while.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
Wasn't my best look.
Did you shoot like Joe Harris?
No.
Okay.
You know how I shoot.
Yeah, you don't. You don't shoot, actually. Yeah. You turn down shots. Just like many of the Raptors last night, as they only scored 99 points. Yeah, what a transition here. Yeah, so third quarter Raptors fall apart, run out of energy. Look, my biggest takeaway, and I was listening back to my own reaction podcast, and I was like, man, what did I say last night? Because it was like mad tired, whatever. So I listened to it on the bus on the way here, and I was like, I had to turn it off halfway through, and I was like, all right, man, Will, how many times are you going to say that the Raptors were tired? But I'm going to say it one more time because my biggest takeaway from that game last night where the Raptors lose 99-113 to Chicago is this is their schedule since the All-Star break, okay? The Raptors have played 15 games. They've had 10 off days in between. So right away, that is very unbalanced. They've had a number of back-to-backs. They had a stretch of 6 games and 8 nights. A lot of these 10 off days, quote-unquote, were mostly travel days as well, because of the fact that outside of a 3-game road stand that lasted all of 4 days and a back-to-back in Los Angeles, the Raptors have literally boarded a flight to a different city every other game.
Yeah, their only home game being one game in between stops on the road.
The Laker game. So it was like essentially another road game. So
that's tough.
I don't know. I just thought they ran out of gas yesterday. Blake, am I just taking the team off the hook there, or what's going on?
Well, I agree to some level that they ran out of gas. It certainly looked that way. You look at, a Scottie Barnes who has had this tremendous stretch of play since the All-Star break, but the last 2 games has been a little shakier. You look at a Fred VanVleet who's dealing with a knee injury and is trying to play through that. And by his own admission last night after the game, it's not all the way back where they want. And it's a second night of a travel back-to-back. Like, there's a reason we always mention back-to-backs because teams lose more on them. Like, there's a legitimate market factor when you bet on games and a team's on the second night of a travel back-to-back. And especially when you look at the Bulls had a 2-day rest advantage. So these are real things. And the Bulls also get a little boost of, Patrick Williams is back and Alex Caruso has his footing under him enough to move back to the starting lineup.
Yeah, he looked good yesterday.
You have those things. However, it's a bit of a consistent problem since the All-Star break that the Raptors tail off later in games. And had that been happening earlier in the year when guys were playing 40 minutes and the rotation was 6 or 7 guys regularly, I would have understood it more.
Okay.
I understand it a little bit less coming out of the All-Star break where admittedly they've had Fred VanVleet's missed 7 of 15 games. OG hasn't played. Gary Trent doesn't play last night. But they are the number 29 offense in the third quarter since the All-Star break.
Okay.
This is not a blip of this team having a tough time coming out of halftimes. So I wonder what you see there. They're not the hardest part of figuring this out is that they're the number 7 offense in the fourth quarter over that same span.
Yeah.
So what do we make of, like, is it just random? Is it something coming out of halftimes? Is it just that their starting lineups have often been their least effective fivesome and they find something with bench guys quicker? What do you think's there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question because, as you mentioned, it is a recurring problem. As in, literally, it occurred twice in 24 hours. We saw against Philly, they went 12 straight misses in the third quarter, and I think they only had 14 points. Yesterday, about 24 hours later, they only score 18 points in the third quarter. They go for a 5-minute stretch without a basket. They had some free throws in between, but it's ugly. It's hard to say. I think it's probably a mix of everything. Like, for them, I think the starting lineup is changing all the time. And let's be honest, the starting lineup actually hasn't really been like. I mean, obviously it's changed a lot, but I haven't really loved the way they've looked offensively. Like yesterday, for example, they started Precious and Kem. 2 centers. Precious has been scoring well, but his advantage is largely playing against other centers and using his foot speed and also being able to hit the 3. Last night he didn't hit the 3. And also, he's playing against 4s. There's just not as much advantage for him there. Kem, I actually thought he played a really nice game yesterday in terms of what Kem can bring you, but like there's just a limited offensive sort of skill set there. And I think the Raptors were actually able to execute quite well at the start of the game in the first half, and they're able to sort of navigate some of these tight spaces. But it felt like the Bulls, once they saw it, and they were like, okay, so this is what they're doing. Can make a couple of adjustments, and the Raptors really just kind of ran out of gas in that stretch. And I also think that, look, yesterday's case was I mean, guys were just making very, very silly plays. You just don't see it. Like, I thought Zach LaVine had a really nice quarter while he's 16 in the third. He had a stretch there, 3 straight baskets where it was 3 different Raptors screwing something up on defense. And, you know, it was Fred getting beat for a box out for a putback by Zach LaVine. First off, how many putbacks do you think Zach LaVine has on this season? Like 20?
Yeah, a good number.
It's not like he's on the glass like that, but he gets on the glass. You know, Fred doesn't box him out. Then another play where Scottie and I think someone else who was defending the screen miscommunicate. Nobody steps up to guard Zach, who's a great shooter, and he knocks it down. And then the play after that, another miscommunication. Raptors are caught with Chris Boucher having to rotate and a really long rotation against Zach LaVine, and he just blows right by him, and he finishes at the basket. And I'm just thinking, like, this is just all issues of fatigue. They're not really getting on the offensive glass during this stretch as well. They didn't win the possession battle last night. Like, this is just sort of how the Raptors go. But the third quarter in particular is confusing to me. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not fully like coaches are just adjusting against them and then they can't solve it. Because as you mentioned, their fourth quarter offense is good.
Yeah, so that's kind of that forces me to lean toward it's just kind of random and kind of noisy, and the starting lineups, like Precious and Birch have now played 31 minutes together, and the team scores 92.9 points per 100 possessions. That
sounds about right.
That's like we're talking almost 3 quarters worth of play now where they'd be on a not very good, like a 93-point pace for the game. So that's a bit of a problem. But you're right. Like last night, it doesn't look that bad. Like Precious didn't have, that was probably his shakiest game in a while, but Kem Birch has a good game in part because he lets you put Nikola Vucevic in the pick and roll a lot, right?
Yep.
And Birch is by a good margin their best screener among the bigs. And I don't think you want to, Thad just isn't playing well enough to get bigger minutes and use him as a screener. And then, Barnes just isn't there yet as a screener. So they don't have a ton of options right now with Fred banged up and Gary Trent and OG both out. Like that's all their spacing right there.
Yeah.
That's all of it.
That's why they only shot 6 of 32 from 3. And 2 of those from Armani Brooks, who we will get to. This is just a recurring segment every time you and I talk on Tuesdays is we got to talk about Armani Brooks.
Armani Brooks Tuesdays. Let's get the drop ready.
All right, the producer next week, we're going to change that up. Look at him. Look at Derek. He's springing into action right there.
If he's on the team next Tuesday, we'll see. Thursday's the last game on his 10-day.
Listen,
on his second
we got to sign him.
So.
He's the 3rd best shooter healthy right now.
Yeah, I would. Anyway, we'll talk about that in the second half.
Okay.
Because obviously I have Armani Brooks takes. But this is where this team is, right? Is Gary Trent, even when he's slumping, opponents adjust for him and stretch out for him. And OG is one of their most reliable shooters with a very large sample that other teams respect. And Fred's mostly a spot-up guy right now. His drives are down from like 14 a game to 9.5 a game since the All-Star break.
Yeah.
So he's playing a lot more of a, kind of spot up or catch and shoot role. And that looks the way it does right now. It's been a little up and down. He's shooting under 40% overall since the All-Star break. So there's a lot going into the offense struggling. I don't know that there's anything specific to the third quarter that I can pull out other than, you know, it might be worth trying a different look in the starting five just to see.
Yeah. I guess my other question from last night's game is, you know, look, you can see your team's tired. As I just described, 15 games against 10 off days, many of them travel days, a lot of back-to-backs, pretty much in a different city every single night. You're going to be tired. Thankfully, the Raptors have 2 off days here at home. They can recharge a little bit, a lot less travel on their schedule now. But in that game in particular, especially in that third quarter when you're really struggling, maybe even the start of the fourth quarter when you were lagging and maybe you make a fake comeback, maybe you don't. The Raptors end up not doing it. But, like, why not extend the rotation at that point? Like, it felt like, look, I have not been one of those people who have complained about Nick Nurse's rotations too much in terms of, like, you know, he needs to extend the bench and this and that. I know the bench is not good. But when your starters are so tired that they're not good, you know, I would have liked to see Delano earlier in that game. I would have liked to see Utah earlier in that game. You know, and I don't know if that changes the game. But ultimately, like, even at the start of the fourth quarter when Kem and Fred were out there, and I was like, just, I don't know. I feel like if you sat courtside, you could hear their knees squeaking. Like, that's, so just don't even press them into that. Like, try to give some other guys that chance to maybe give you a little bit of spark of energy. And look, you're probably going to lose that game anyway. The Raptors definitely lost that game, right? So, I don't know. Why didn't Nick extend the rotation a little bit? I guess this is sort of a season-long question. But
yeah, the
I'm
answer
asking
to
you
that
again,
is
Nick.
because, and that's it.
Yeah.
No, but I think there's something to that. I think there's something to, on the second night of a back-to-back, like, hey, who can give a spark? And I think there's a little bit, too, of, hey, if you give those guys a chance and someone clicks, that's another guy you can maybe trust next time out. And they don't have a lot of that right now, where we're kind of back to there are only 8 guys healthy that Nick Nurse really trusts, and one of them, his contract expires on Friday. So that's, and I don't think it says a lot of great things about Svi and Banton and Utah that Brooks has jumped ahead of them so quickly. And I get that there's a shooting and spacing component, especially with Gary Trent out.
Sure.
But I don't know that, you know, that speaks the world of his confidence in those guys.
Yeah.
We've even stopped doing the up and down thing with the two ways, or at least Justin Champagny, where, you know, that was a guy Nick would turn to earlier in the year. So I don't think it's something that Nick Nurse deserves necessarily blame for or anything. Like, they if they don't play the rotations that he's played this year, they're not close enough in the standings for this game against Chicago to matter. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a really tough stretch fatigue wise. And look, the nice thing is, for our purposes, that's done as an excuse now. They've got 2 days off before Cleveland, and they only have one back-to-back left with 10 games to go, and that back-to-back's against Houston.
Yeah.
So we'll at least find out, I think, if this kind of night is a fatigue thing or if it's something a little deeper, because they have been a little more blowout prone, or not even prone, but they've historically been blowout proof, right? Nick Nurse teams have not gotten blown out, and they're annoying deep into the fourth quarter, and they do the fake comeback thing and everything. This is unusual for them to have a handful of games in the last 6 weeks where they just don't have it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's I mean, look, I ultimately don't think it would have changed the game. Maybe there's like a, I don't know, 10% chance you bring these guys in and they're energetic and they swarm the ball or whatever. And, you know, I mean, look, you're playing against DeMar, you're playing against Zach, you're playing against, you know, Vucevic. Like, there was enough offense for the Bulls to sustain a 16-point lead, I think, heading into the fourth. But, yeah, I mean, it was just a thought, I guess. I wouldn't have minded, I guess, was what I'm trying to say. Okay, I think the biggest storyline from yesterday, though, at least in terms of the conversations people are having, is Fred VanVleet and his knee. And he shot 7 of 22 from the field yesterday. And, you know, he played a good game otherwise. I guess, you know, 9 assists, only 1 turnover. Like, there were some good things about it. But 7 of 22 is 7 of 22. I mean, you're not really going to sugarcoat this. I went through and watched the film of the shots, sort of broke it down in terms of, like, open misses, which are like shots that you can accept, but they just missed them. You know, makes, obviously, the 7 makes, what were they? And also, they're just bad shots. And for me, most of the open misses are just like wide open threes that he just couldn't really get to. There's a baseline out of bounds three where they, we talked about this a couple weeks ago about like they love doing this play where they inbound to about the free throw line area. Then the inbounder being Fred cuts to the corner around a couple screens and gets an open pass. He's so good at those. He missed that one. He missed a deep three without a contest from Zach LaVine. He had a layup where he tried to go up quick, no contest from Vucevic. He just missed it, although he got a wide open three after that and he made it. A wide open three, he missed it in the third quarter, another wide open three, and then another wide open three, all in the fourth quarter as the Raptors was basically, running out of gas in that stretch. So those are shots you're kind of okay with. When you look at in terms of like the bad shots, in terms of like, okay, maybe he could have taken those back. A lot of those were at the rim, like got blocked at the rim on a layup. He got, a contested pull-up three, but there was no separation from his man, so he missed it. There's a mid-range pull-up where he got no separation from Io. He got blocked on a runner. Maybe he was playing for the foul there. I couldn't really be sure. He got blocked by Vucevic at the basket. And then there's just like end of the clock heaves. And there were 3 of those as well. And you can't fully blame a guy for, you just got to get a shot up. And Fred being a shooter, obviously he's going to be open a lot of the times at the end of the clock. But like ultimately, this is not like a good Fred performance. We know that. So.
And I didn't think his defense was up to his usual par either.
Yeah.
It's not the best game to evaluate him from because they've got 2 big guard style wings, and
he wasn't going to guard DeMar or Zach,
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that, but he still picked up 5 fouls even in doing that.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I thought the game from a point guard perspective was solid. Again, the 9-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, hard to do that if you're having a terrible night overall.
Yep.
And I threw that stat at you a little earlier, and I guess that's what I want to know what your concern level is the drives dropping by 50% from 14 to 9.5.
Yeah.
Is that something that, like, are you noticing that? And do you think that's a Fred discomfort thing? That's a matchup thing? What do you think's going on there? A spacing thing? Because that's a pretty dramatic drop over. I know it's just 8 games that VanVleet's played in, but that's pretty noticeable.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think absolutely that is a knee thing. And that I think that's the main concern. And that's the thing that's like, maybe even more than just, okay, if the Raptors might have to play in the play-in tournament, all this stuff. Like, we've been doing this thing of we have an ongoing Nets concern meter. We might have to have a Fred's knee concern meter because that might be a bigger concern to me. Like, whether you get into playing game or not, that's fine. Obviously you don't want to play Brooklyn, but after that, maybe you play like Charlotte or Atlanta. Guess what Charlotte and Atlanta have? All-star guards. You really need Fred to be healthy and performing for that. And, of course, once you make it to the playoffs, you need him to perform. And to be honest, like, some of the quotes that he gave after the game just were a little bit concerning. I think we have that clip. Producer?
Yeah, it's not doing much. It's not doing much. I understand the concept of it. You know what I mean? I probably would be, even less effective than I was tonight if I would have played, last night. But it is what it is. It's just one of those things where you just got to kind of take it day by day and figure it out as you go. Certainly hard to gain a rhythm, as you said. But it's all of this is difficult. It's a difficult situation, and it's what I get paid to do. So I got to figure it out. Certainly take ownership and responsibility for my poor performance, and I'm looking forward to getting back on track.
Do you feel confident that with the way you are in terms of your health, you'll be able to be productive the way this team needs?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get there. Now, it just depends on what path, we'd like to take to get there. There's a few different things we can do to get to that point, considering where we are in the season. I think for the most part, I've always elected to play until somebody stops me. So here we are. And, some days feel better than others, but for the most part, I can do my job. Pretty good out there. Definitely not, where I would love to be, but it's a process to get there.
Yeah, so not the most encouraging. Like, the question at the start was like, hey, you've been rested a lot for these games, and he was rested for the first half, the back-to-back. He didn't play against Philly. Do you feel like it's helped your knee? And he's like, yeah, not really. And then the thing that really stuck out was there's a couple of things that we could do to get there, which I don't know. Again, I feel like every week we're on this show talking about injuries, and we are not doctors. Turns out it takes longer than a week to get that doctorate. But like, what do you mean? What do you think Fred means?
I mean, I think the option would be to sit it down for an extended stretch.
But they kind of did do that, didn't they?
They did, but I don't know how much of that is like, I think there's a difference between you're questionable every day and you sit out the games and you have.
But it wasn't even like he was warming up.
Was he not? You're at the games. I'm not. So, okay.
Unless he was in the practice court upstairs. I didn't see him.
I mean, there's also there was the one picture of him in like the Stone Cold Steve Austin knee brace pregame one day. So that would be my thing is like he's listed as questionable for all those games that doesn't play. You know, I think that's different than, hey, I'm shutting it down for a week or two and I don't have to worry about trying to get ready to play and testing it each day because I know I'm off for X amount of time. The issue is that we're probably past that point in the schedule where that's doable. The Raptors have 10 games left. They're going to, even if they can't get the 6th seed, if they lose to Cleveland on Thursday.
No, they can't lose to Cleveland on Thursday.
That's
a must win.
Even if they do, they're still going to want to play for the 7th seed because then not only do you get 2 cracks at the play and you get to host both of them, you know, eventually they're probably going to win a game in front of full capacity crowd. I don't know. I feel like this is all leading to like a big Fred VanVleet heel turn where the Raptors keep losing in front of full capacity crowd. And you know when he grabs the mic at the last game to thank the fans all the time?
Yeah.
He's like, I blame each and every single one of you. And yeah, that's where this is going. This is going full WWE.
Okay.
Which you could check out on all the Sportsnet channels, of course.
Definitely.
So I don't know, man. I think we're past the point of Fred shuts it down for a little bit to get a proper rest. Now, in terms of the other things he could be referring to, I don't know, that's maintenance stuff that we don't see. That's sitting out shoot around, sitting out practices, all that kind of stuff. I don't think he's still leading the league in minutes per game when he does play. Maybe that comes down.
Maybe.
I don't know.
That has to come down, man. I'm sorry. At this point, it has to. Like early in the season, I get it. But like, if he's this banged up, like there was no reason for him to play in the fourth quarter last night. I'm sorry, man. But there wasn't.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And even if you do play the first 3-4 minutes, although the Bulls also played their starters until the end. I don't know.
That's because the Bulls are down bad. Like they're having a horrible month of March. Yeah, they needed this win because they're about to go on the road.
Anything to not put Matt Thomas in the game right now.
Come on, man. I love. By the way, Matt Thomas, one of the pregame warm up MVPs. Love watching that man warm up. Okay, well, I mean, I guess it's a situation where Fred's gonna have to learn how to play on it, right? Because like if you're talking about like other things, you could, people's minds probably automatically jump to like, well, is it surgery? Is it something like that?
And that's something that ends his season.
You can't really do that at this point.
Well, you can if that's what's best for him long term. Like let's be honest, the goals that this team and this franchise have aren't going to be accomplished this season. Nick Nurse said it last night.
You've come so far this season.
I know you have. You don't
want
to do that, but you also don't want a guy that you're very invested in and who is, if not the most important, the second most important player to driving your team's success right now, to continue to play through something. And look, we don't know. Like they've said that the MRIs and stuff came back clear, but when Fred speaks cryptically like that, like I don't know what to make of it. So I would say if that's something that can help, great. You got to do that. But I think, given what we know about Fred, he'd gut it out for these last 10 games and however long the playoffs are. And I almost certainly think he'll sit that Houston game on the second last day of the season, maybe even the Knicks game in the finale. Games, but we'll see where they are in the standings too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, yesterday obviously was also a situation where Gary was out. He picks up an injury in that Sixer game, so he's out last second. Then you're playing Chicago, who coming into that game, the Raptors only a game and a half back, and there's a chance to maybe get the tiebreaker. I guess they would have just tied the season series 2-2, but in any case, the tiebreaker was on the line for Chicago at least. I can see why Fred played. Plus, it's in Chicago. He's from Rockford. Like, I'm sure it's always a big game for him whenever they go there. But I guess the question is, like, is this something where he can play around it? Like, can he change his role? We already mentioned the fact that he's driving less. Is this something where he can change his role and maybe still be able to operate with the fact that he's not 100%? I
don't think so, because what does it look like for Fred VanVleet if he changes his role? It's, he's off the ball more. And
he's off the ball a lot already, I would think.
But Fred VanVleet off the ball is not, hey, go stand in the corner.
Yeah.
Because teams will guard him and the spacing is helpful, but he's not going to get a lot of open looks there. Fred VanVleet off the ball is moving around a lot. It's setting screens. It's coming off of improvisational screens. It's Spain pick and roll. It's all of that stuff. It's, hey, operating the pick and roll with the knowledge that you're going to get off the ball and then relocate. Like off ball, Fred VanVleet is still moving around a lot. So I don't know that. I think you can make a case that that's a good thing to do for the Raptors offense as a whole. Like, hey, Siakam and Barnes operating and Fred flying off the ball. We talked a lot this year about how good they look when they do that, but I don't think that helps the knee any really. And I don't think there's much you can do defensively, because any game that matters, you want him guarding the best point of attack guy who's, 6'5" or under.
Yeah, this is tough, man.
Like it's reductive and it's simplistic, but the real hope has to be that with a more stretched out final 10 games, Fred feels better.
Yeah.
That's it. That's where we're at in the season.
Yeah.
We're past the point where he can shut it down for a couple weeks. We're at the point where I would imagine if surgery were to be necessary, Fred would probably try to gut it out the rest of the way. And we're past the point where like these games don't matter. Like they matter to the Raptors, at least until they don't.
Yeah.
Like until there's separation on either side of them at the 7 seed. So I don't know. It's a tough spot to be in. It really highlights how important Fred VanVleet is to this team, especially when you start playing against. I know they just beat the 76ers without him, but when you start playing,
that was a struggle fest, man. Come on.
Yeah, when you start playing teams that are as good as you and teams that need it as much as you, Fred VanVleet is really important.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because I feel like a lot of our conversations, at least heading into the playoffs right now, are like, they're at the mercy of other teams. Can Cleveland finally like drop a few more games? Which, by the way, they lost to the Lakers, so I guess the Raptors losing the Lakers is now even. Although I'm still upset about that game. That was such a stupid way to lose. But like, you're at the mercy of Cleveland. You're at the mercy of Chicago. You're at the mercy of Fred's knee. You're at the mercy of Kyrie. OG's finger, right? We haven't even talked about that. Like Malachi, I guess he wouldn't really factor in, but right now I think you would need him for depth right now, especially with Fred being injured. You're at the mercy of Brooklyn and the play-in tournament and the vaccination statuses of certain players, and it's like, man, like I would just love to like not stress this much, but it's I guess this is playoff. This is what happens when you're in the playoff race.
And sometimes I think about it and I'm like, man, the Raptors have had a lot of stuff not go their way. They're kind of due some good fortune.
How are they 40-32?
And then, but I think about it, and I think about, hey, do we need like a karmic rebalancing?
Yeah.
And that's like, oh no, they moved up in the draft lottery last year and got Scottie Barnes, who looks like the guy in time eventually. So that's already happened. I guess they're reaping the rewards of a really down year in Tampa last year. But we just didn't realize that they were also paying ahead for this year as well.
You know what? Knowing that in retrospect, I'd take it, and maybe that's the best way to alleviate some of the stresses. Just to watch some Scottie Barnes highlights. Obviously, not a great game last night, but an incredible cross-court pass in transition. The one where he found Fred on the opposite wing. It's just such a beautiful pass, man. The vision to see it too. It was great to see.
Yeah, that was awesome. He's making some like pretty high level one-handed catches sometimes too now.
Yep.
Like when you post enter it to him, you don't need to throw a good post entry pass, which is great because the Raptors are not a great post entry pass team.
Nope.
But he just throws the hand out here and catches it.
Yeah. Turns out when you have Kawhi hands, you can just basically vacuum in any ball that comes into the territory.
Vladdy needs some time at designated hitter this year. Scottie Barnes step in and play first base.
Yeah. Honestly,
the skill set.
You know what? We will talk more about that after this break because I actually do want to talk a little Jays with you. You and I have been, I know both of us have been on and off watching this spring training game with great intent.
The Jays are just roping everything against this Yankees team.
Yeah, there we go. All right. I'm going to pretend I know what that meant. So it's a good spot for us to take a break. I'm your host, Wolu. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Walu. I continue to be joined by the Fan Morning Show's Blake Murphy. Blake, before we go on to this grab bag section of the show where I have like 10 assorted Raptors topics to throw at you because none of them are really like even going to give us 5 minutes. You're doing something with the Jays. What's going on, man? So this Saturday and also next Saturday, you're going to be on pre and post game on radio. Obviously, there's a huge amount of interest around the Jays, even though they're only in spring training. But obviously, the labor deal got hammered out, and we get to watch the Jays. Who, I mean, there's a lot of excitement. So tell us about what's going on. Yeah,
there is a lot of excitement. It's, first of all, I think even a non-fan knows about Vladdy and just how good he is. And
of course.
He's entering the year coming off a number 2 MVP season and is number 2 once again on the MVP odds, right there with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. So Jays look good there. Bo Bichette's coming off a season where he led the league in hits. Both of those guys are young where, hey, it might not be statistically possible for Vlad to have a better year, but those guys have more upside than they have downside. They lost Marcus Semien and Robbie Ray, but they replaced them with Kevin Gossman, Yusei Kikuchi, and then Matt Chapman at third base, who we just watched come out of the game after getting a cleat to the arm. Hopefully that's nothing but a scratch. He better be fine. So yeah, I did a pregame with Show Ali on Sunday to kind of tee up our first spring training radio broadcast. Ben Wagner has the calls from down in Dunedin on the Sportsnet radio network and sportsnet.ca. We have a bunch, we're on the Sportsnet TV side and Sportsnet Now, a bunch of these spring training games are going to be televised. You can check my Twitter for the schedule there. I've put it out. But yeah, so this Saturday and next, I'll do pre and post game for those spring training games. And I think we'll probably take some calls, at least some tweets and texts and stuff like that. And just talk around the Jays, set up the season. There's a lot of optimism now and there's a lot of excitement, but we also have a couple weeks to fill here before things get underway on April 8th. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So if I'm obviously people listening to the show know me as a Raptors guy, but I'm a pretty big baseball guy as well. And it's nice to...
Hey, listen, you were a baseball guy before the Raptors guy. I remember reading you on Fangraphs.
Yeah, I have some Fangraphs.
In like 2012.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the Raptors are the first thing I really got into writing about. But for those who don't know, the ODC in my Twitter handle is for On Deck Circle, which was the name of my first blog. It was a little baseball analytics blog back in my university days. So there's some baseball background here. I'm just trying to do a little bit of everything.
No, listen, that's you're the Ben Zobrist of Toronto media.
Apparently.
Yeah, no, seriously, no, you literally have all the knowledge on all the sports. No, listen, I know you're a very avid Jays fan, consumer, analyst, everything like that, and I'm really excited for you. You're gonna have Zoobs on as well?
Yeah, for postgame. So pregame will be with Show Ali, and then postgame will be with Andrew Zuber, who is a great friend of mine. Who we've like been in the same industry and worked at the same place sometimes, and we've never actually got to work on anything together before. Other than like those team previews back in the day at the Score when me and Zoobs split up and Zoobs is like, oh, I'm going to do the Knicks and the Kings so I can get jokes off. And then you and I split the rest. So yeah, I'm excited for that. That'll be a lot of fun. And the team is just really, really exciting. And I think something that, even if you're a Raptors fan and you don't care that we're talking about the Blue Jays, something that you can think back to 2015 and 2016, think about what those Aprils were like 2016 especially, because the Jays were coming off that playoff run in 2015. They were bringing back a good, exciting team. The Rogers Center was full pretty often, and the Raptors were in the playoffs. That was the year they make the Eastern Conference Finals run. We're going to have the Leafs in the playoffs now as well. This city gets a really cool buzz when multiple teams are going at the same time, and especially going well at the same time. You can add in that Canada Soccer later this week is going to qualify for the World Cup.
Hey, man, come on. But yeah, I mean, they'll qualify. They'll qualify. You're right.
What are we talking about? We're past that. We're past the scared part. Canada basketball, you still got to knock on wood.
Knock on more than wood, man.
We're past the scared part with Canada Soccer. I'm the foremost soccer expert as well.
Yeah.
They're gonna get that done this week. So I think it's gonna be a really cool time around the city, man.
No, it definitely will be, man. I'm looking forward to getting out to Rogers Center and watching as many of these Jays games in the summer as possible, because it's fun, man. It's fun. It's great. I can't wait for Alex to get the hookup on the Yusei Kikuchi jerseys. I know he's already got the what does he have? He got me Ryu, which is great.
Did I pronounce his name right?
What?
There's I remember there was once last year where there was a picture of Manoa and Ryu holding each other's jerseys, and Alex like sent it to me and was like, "It's me and you," which a bit much.
Yeah.
A bit much. No, it'll be a lot of fun, and you know, I obviously these are teams that they'll promote each other too, right? Like I wouldn't be surprised if the timing works out if Utah throws out the first pitch at a Kikuchi start or something like that. Like you get cool little moments like that.
Okay.
We've seen Scottie Barnes there, we've seen OG there. Like that stuff's fun.
Let's make it happen.
Is that going to stay fair? There's another home run.
Oh.
That might have been foul.
Oh, okay. All right. That's too
That's
bad.
foul. That's a loud strike.
All right, Blake.
Let's talk about
this guy doing play-by-play right now. This is great, man.
Let's see. Do you want to talk about guys on the fringe of the Jays roster like Greg Bird, or do you want to talk about guys on the fringe of the Raptors roster like Armani Brooks?
Greg Bird is a hilarious name. I'm sorry, but
it is.
It sounds made up, man. It sounds like what you would give someone who's hiding. Anyway, okay, let's go through these grab bag topics. To be honest, let's not spend more than 2 minutes on these because I think that's the amount of interest people are going to have in each of these topics. And plus, I have a lot of them, so we can burn through them. We got 15 minutes left in the show. All right, first one, Armani Brooks. Is he due for another 10-day deal? And do you sign him just for the rest of the season and perhaps beyond?
Well, you probably have to. This is a second 10-day deal.
Yeah.
I believe the change. So normally you can only sign guys to 2 10 days, and then you have to make the rest of season decision on them. That was expanded this year to 3, but it's not immediately clear to me whether that third one had to be a COVID one. Like they signed DJ Wilson to 3 10 days, but 2 of those were COVID hardships.
Right.
So I don't know if Brooks can do another 10-day. Either way, I think he's probably played his way into more. He's a guy that they liked before. He's a guy that even before they signed him, we identified him on this show as someone they might be interested in. And I think,
did we?
Yeah, I mentioned him as a post trade deadline. I was on here and I mentioned him as like one of the guys to watch. It was him and
that's impressive, man.
Him and KZ Okpala.
That's impressive.
And there was one other name that I'm drawing a blank on now.
Yeah.
Someone else might have signed him. I don't know, but yeah, he was on the list of 3 that I had. Moses Brown was also on that list, and then I scratched him off. And now
we'll see him on Thursday.
Now he's in Cleveland. Yeah, longtime future Raptor from the Goran Dragic saga, Moses Brown.
Yeah.
No, I think the most interesting thing about Brooks' time with the Raptors to me is not, I mean, really, it's that he's played 70 minutes, which is surprising. But we've actually seen everything from Armani Brooks except the one skill that got him in the door. He's only hit 28% of his threes, and what he brings to the table is shooting.
Yeah.
He has a strong track record of college. Last year with the Rockets in the G League, he shot pretty poorly with the Rockets this year. It wasn't immediately clear, is that a Rockets situation? Is that you're getting small little bursts of playing time?
Yeah.
Is it just randomness? He hasn't shot the ball well as a Raptor yet. He's 5 of 18 on threes, but you see his ability to get open.
Yep.
Off the ball. You see, he's actually, I think, over-delivered on my expectations defensively.
Yeah, same,
just in terms of fundamentals and his, his drive to recover if he gets beat, to get back in transition.
He's like more athletic than I don't know why I just envisioned that he's a small guard, probably not going to impact much defensively, but he's actually got up there for a couple of rebounds.
Well, this is your Raptors brain. You probably assume any guard is undersized and not crazy athletic.
Yes.
And any forward has a 7'3" wingspan, but isn't very tall and can't protect the rim traditionally.
Can't shoot really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's two Raptors, and you just have them all the time.
The Raptors have brainwashed me about basketball. Like this is how there's no such thing as positions. You need to have at least 6'9" guys on the floor at all times. Yeah.
Like you said, at least 5 as if you could throw more out there.
Listen, Nick has sometimes been known to play defense on the court as well. Maybe we need a 6'9" coach as well.
Yeah, there you go. No, I would expect Armani Brooks to factor in. I would have said it's more of a competition with DJ Wilson, but the reporting out of OKC when his Raptors time was done, because OKC had his G League rights, is that knee injury he suffered with the Raptors ended his season.
Damn.
So that's really unfortunate. It's unfortunate the way 10-day protection goes, but I would expect Brooks to be in the mix here. The tough question, and I think this was another item on your grab bag, is do you sign Brooks outright for the rest of the season, or do you convert Justin Champagnie and try to sign Brooks as a 2-way? Because you can't do both of those things.
Oh, that's right. No, I think. So is he eligible for a 2-way, even though he's played 2 years in the league already?
Yeah, you can, as long as it's your 4th year or earlier.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, look, listen, I think Armani and his agent have pretty good leverage right now. They're like, hey, You only made 6 threes last night, and 2 of them were by my guy, and he's on a 10-day deal, so you better sign him to a full contract rather than converting it. I mean, we'll see. I mean, like, ultimately, these are more, I guess, minute decisions. If I had to guess, the Raptors probably just sign him outright, and at least for the rest of the season, we'll see if they attach another year. But my next item was going to be Justin Champagnie. Why is he down with a 905 all the time now, and is he going to be converted to a full-time contract?
Well, look at the Raptors roster situation, right? Like, there's already, you're starting Achua and Birch and Barnes and Siakam. You're starting 4 power forwards.
Yeah.
You're also bringing Thad Young and Chris Boucher off the bench.
Yeah.
So there are 6 power forwards ahead of him in the rotation.
Listen, this is how the team was built up,
I know.
man. What are we going to say now? Like, oh, we can't do this? Like, no.
I also think there's something to, he needs development time. Like, it's the same with Delano, where it's good that he was good to start the year and gave you minutes that you maybe didn't expect. But long term for these guys, the plan involves the 905. And we've seen that the way that materializes in success for guys. So I think that's part of it. He's got to, if he's going to have a long-term NBA role, it's great that he has the hustle stuff. It's great that he has his feel and anticipation is out of this world. I think it's great. But if they want him, if they're looking 2 years down the line, can Justin Champagnie be a 20-minute game guy instead of a 8-minute a game energy guy?
Mm-hmm.
He needs that time and space to develop and work on some of his other stuff, some of his, man-to-man defense, some of his, hey, can you create for yourself? Can you shoot down? Can you knock down threes at bigger volume? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So log jam ahead of him, and it's just good to get developmental reps.
Yeah, and by the way, I've just checked in on his G League numbers. So he's been down there, I think, since the 23rd of February. That game he had 25 points, 11 to 21 shooting. He shot 5 threes in that game. Then he had 16 and 10. Then he had 20 and 7. Then he had 21 and 10. Then he had 18 and 4. And these are, like, outside of one of these were all wins. He's shooting the 3 at a more, at least he's tempting them more than I guess he would get to.
I mean, he's hitting 34% in the G League overall, and that's not.
And he takes different styles of threes in the G League. It's not just catch and shoot in the corner.
And that's not a wild percentage. But this is a guy who had no track record of shooting. In college. So you need to see.
Oh, the Raptors just love teaching players how to play basketball.
Yeah. But no, I think it's good. And the thing that stood out to me most about the way you laid that out, other than the wins, because the 905 are at the top of the Eastern Conference.
They've
clinched a playoff spot already. Champagnie and Bonga have been really solid in helping the team win. But look at how consistent the point totals were that you just read out.
Mm-hmm.
That's hey, you're not going down and having a 30-point game and then having a 6-point game where you don't have it. That level of consistency, to me, is usually a good sign in the G League.
Right. This is probably a bigger conversation, so we might skip it. But real quickly, how much of the Thad Young trade was for leadership? The encore production has been a little unsteady.
Yeah. If it was primarily for leadership, I think you maybe overpaid a little bit. I still keep looking at the list of guys who had an extra year on their deal, who maybe that asset rolls over into the summer, where if you need a salary for trading, or hey, you look ahead and you're just not going to have cap space anyway. You've got about $30 million to play with under the tax and over the cap for Boucher and your mid-level and whatever you do with Thad Young. I don't know that there's going to be a big market for a Thad Young sign-in trade if that's necessary to make the money match.
It's not. There's not going to be a market for that.
Yeah, and like maybe you do the kind of the backward. It's not the Keith Van Horn thing anymore because they took it out, but you can give them a 1-year guarantee with 2 non-guaranteed years on a sign and trade because they have to be 3 years. But I don't think that that's going to be a ton of value. I also think that this feels worse right now because we're coming off the first weekend of March Madness where all of these got like a theoretical number 18 pick dropped down to a theoretical number 32 pick. Well, those guys, we now know what some of those guys' names are and what they look like. And obviously, I'm exaggerating. Like I knew who some of these guys were before, but we're coming off of the biggest weekend other than the draft week of prospect excitement.
Yeah,
so it looks when you have Benedict Mathurin looking amazing, and you're like, ooh, a Canadian kid in the lottery. Yeah, he was killer for Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it feels a little worse when you're also looking at the guys you could have been drafting up close a little bit more.
It's all good, man. I love the 2 or 3 hustle plays Dad makes and the quick passing sometimes. Although I still think, look, there's clearly an adjustment there. I'm actually going to talk to Thad soon, so I'm going to ask him about his own
also a guy, and we laid this out when they acquired him, and this is a hard thing it's going to be a hard thing for them to find the right balance of. But Thad Young is a guy who is not going to make bad lineups good, but he's going to help good lineups find even easier buckets because he's a dot connector, right? He's a guy who, hey, he can make the extra pass. And if Fred's relocating, he's the guy who picks him out.
Yeah.
He can work the screen side of a pick and roll, and you can trust him to handle a little bit and dribble handoff and stuff like that. All of that stuff matters a little bit less if you're playing with Chris Boucher and Armani Brooks versus if you're playing as the fifth guy along with Fred, Pascal, Scottie, and OG or something like that. And I'm not advocating you start that young and give him 20 minutes with those guys, but I do think in a playoff environment where you're maximizing every possession instead of focusing on things like development and guys are out and stuff like that, maybe you see a better version of that.
Look, I hope so. I hope so.
Trying to be optimistic.
Yeah. Next topic, because we've run out of time on that one. Nick keeps trying to rehearse the Precious Chem lineup. Is this the 2022 version of Serge and Mark? Because I remember that towards, obviously, clearly those two guys were way better than the two guys here. But like towards the end of that 2019 season, we saw Nick sort of like almost pigeonhole and sort of force that lineup into the games, and eventually it did matter and it did pay off. So is this Nick trying to work it out right now with his biggest possible combo?
Maybe, but I don't think like if they're starting that way or playing that lineup in a playoff game,
yeah, we're done.
Things are in trouble. It looked fine against Philadelphia because the key there is to have lots of size and have multiple bodies that you can throw in and bang in the paint and stuff. I would be very, very surprised if that's, assuming OG and Gary Trent are healthy enough to play in a play-in or playoff scenario, I'd be very surprised if we see that look.
Yeah, me too.
It's been really ineffective in a small sample, like 31 minutes and something like a minus 25 or minus 30 net rating.
As I pointed this out yesterday on Twitter, it was just like, so Kem wants to catch the ball on the short roll and make the extra pass, right? Sometimes he'll take the floater, but most times you'll look for the extra pass. Extra pass is usually going to come from the guy who's going to be open in the corner, who sort of pulls over to sort of contest at the rim. If that's Precious in the corner and you're kicking out to Precious, like, yeah, of course he's been shooting the three better of late. There's no doubt about that. But, like, that's still ultimately not the greatest outcome for your offense. So, obviously, I think that one's pretty clear.
I did think there was one really funny play last night where you see actually these tiny occasions where the lack of spacing works to your favor. And it was Precious on the left block. And Kem is kind of just like standing in the paint. And you're like, this is so cluttered. What's going on? And then Kem's man comes over to double Precious. And it was the one where Precious kind of just turned around and just gave like a no step floater.
Yeah.
And had that miss, Kem is wide open underneath the net. And it's like, oh, have you stumbled on something where when you have no spacing, it confuses the opposing bigs? And that's part of why you're able to get so many offensive rebounds.
Other teams are just like, is it 1990?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Why is this the positioning that's on the team? Yeah, look, it's an awkward lineup. I don't think it's going to be quite as effective as Serge and Mark. But hey, listen, you might play Philly somewhere down the line, and it might be useful. Last one we're going to get to here, Blake. This is a pressing question. Would you trade everyone on the lease for a healthy right knee for Fred VanVleet?
I'm not taking the bait.
Come on, man.
I'm not taking the bait.
People know the context here, right?
I would assume so.
Can you set the record straight on the context? We're gonna save like 30 seconds here to defend JD. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was clear. Like I understand why Raptors fans get upset about that kind of stuff, and I realize there are more components to this than just
a grand slam by the Blue Jays. Let's go. Who is that? I don't even know these people.
It was Gritchick, I think. I didn't see. Yeah. I wasn't watching. I'm doing my job. No, it was a joke. And if Six Buzz hadn't clipped out just one part of it, it would have been like, I call him an idiot right after that. Good. And we're all laughing at him. Good. And like, it's not a serious thing. But I understand, the world is what it is. And people I don't know. JD loves basketball.
Let it go, man.
No, we're not letting it go. No letting it go for Raptor fans ever. I would, by the way, for the record, I would love to see Fred with a healthy knee, and I can name like 3 players on the Leafs. And
well, look,
take it or leave it for me.
Rasmus Sandin just hit the IR with a knee injury. Let's take his healthy knee, give it to Fred since he's on the IR anyway.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. There's some medical ethics we got to discuss on that one. But that does it for us today. I'm your host, Walu, and you've been listening to The Raptors Show. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review our show. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. Thanks again to my guest, Blake Murphy, to our board producer, Derek Brandale, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping us behind the scenes with the YouTube stream. I will talk to you soon.